So the title of this presentation is the Intelligent Business Process Automation, how great enduring organizations scale people, technology, and value. And as I mentioned, I don't want to discuss things theoretically. I want to share with you the practices and principles and mindsets and mechanisms that work for organizations that have successfully transformed themselves and that have successfully implemented intelligent BPM. So what does that look like? What are some of these experiences come from? They come from more than 50,000 cross-industry excellence and innovation leaders that I have been privileged to collaborate with, partner with on implementing excellence, innovation, and transformation initiatives that for value creation. And what we have learned from these practitioners and many more that are not even shown in that slide is that there are 4 components that matter to them, that were significant components in this transformation and in the implementation of intelligent BPM. So if you don't have to submit your questions here. If I was doing your feedback here, but if I was doing a poll of some kind, I would ask you, what do you think matters most on these successful journeys? Do you think it's about ideas? Do you think it's about methods? Do you think it's about technologies that they use? Or do you think it's about the people and how they engage the people? And there is a number of alternatives for the feedback from the audience, but I'm not going to ask you that question. I just want you to think about that question, and I'm going to give you the answer. So I'll first say that, well, it must be ideas, because you need new ideas that create value to generate a worthwhile transformation here. But then I'll also say that ideas in organizations, ideas are everywhere. What are uncommon are people in your organizations who are willing to put the reputation behind those ideas. Okay, so it must be methods, right, José? It must be, that we need a discipline framework for implementation, for execution, for discipline execution of these new ways of creating value. Well, that's true, but I'll also say that I have been for more than 25 years a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. But for most people, that sounds like a dangerous mental condition. It doesn't really help them, because methods alone do not transform businesses. People do. Okay, so it must be technologies, right, José? Because I see you talking about technology all the time, about the exponential technologies that are changing the way reshaping the way we work and the way we live. From RPA, process mining, natural language processing, artificial intelligence, and a host of exponential technologies that are truly impacting the way we work and the way we live. And while that is true, if you pay close attention to what I say, I will also say that technology can make stupid happen at the speed of light. Wow. So it must be people then, right? Because people are our most important asset. Well, again, I'm not going for what makes us feel good. I'm going for the empirical evidence on how these great enduring organizations operate. And what we have found is that all people matter. People have intrinsic value for every organization. But it's not about all people. It's about creating a meritocracy of ideas accessible to all people, but relying on the right people, the people of purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience to amplify the values and principles and mechanisms that we believe are most important to our organization, aligned with a very clear purpose. So while all people matter, you are looking for the right people in your organization that will allow you to be successful in this journey. So you see, the world of greatness is quite confusing, because the world of greatness is not about just these options of, this or that. The world of greatness is filled with seemingly contradictions, forces that pull in very different directions. Forces, we're going to talk about the need for clear purpose and discipline, the need for exponential technologies and human principles and values, trust, vulnerability, collaboration. So the world of greatness is not an or world. The world of greatness is an and world, and requires us to master the seeming contradictions. And this is hard because most organizations want kind of a simple answer to the problem. And there is no greater contradiction among great enduring organizations than the contradictions of excellence and innovation. Because in the world of excellence, it's all about setting up systems and setting high performance standards and creating systems that meet and exceed those high performance standards. And that's the world of excellence. And there is nothing wrong with that. A lot of organizations will focus on that. But if you only do that, eventually you become obsolete, especially in a rapid changing world in which we live in today, where technologies are shifting an incredible force of speed, and all these macroeconomic forces also play, acting on the system. If you just do excellence, you will eventually become obsolete. So it must be that the great enduring organizations then are the most innovative then, right? They focus on innovation, on creating something new that creates value. Well, that sounds very tempting, but when we look at the empirical evidence, that's not the case. The dominant organizations of our time are not the most innovative, despite of what you may think or the perception that the media can create for you. Because what you see in the media are the successful ones. What you don't see in the media are the most innovative organizations that fail. And the reason they fail is because they fall in love with innovation and they fall in love with technology for its own sake. And what they do is that they change very fast. They are nimble and they pride themselves on being nimble. But if you look at them over a longer period of time, it's like they change fast, but it's a zigzag across a horizontal line. The reason is because they do not have the discipline that's necessary to scale their innovations towards a common purpose, towards a higher purpose. And again, the most innovative organizations are not the great enduring organizations of our time. So it's neither excellence nor innovation that destines you to great enduring performance. It is the intelligent blending of these forces that pull in different directions that are present on great enduring organizations. By all means, they have systems in place, they have high performance standards, and they meet and exceed those high performance standards with robust design and improvements and efficiencies, and they have operational excellence and business excellence in general. But that's not enough. They also have the discipline to step away from that and realize that I cannot design cars by squeezing efficiencies out of horses, so I must come up with new ways of creating value here, not a 5 or 10% better way, perhaps a 5 or 10-fold better way. But here's the catch. Those innovative organizations now that look at excellence with some level of disdain and say there's got to be a better way, once they find that innovation, they don't just fall in love with that innovation and continuously innovate or fall in love with technology. What they do that's unique is that they are able to scale the innovations that they have created consistent with their purpose. And the way that they scale those innovations successfully is by implementing the principles and mechanisms of excellence into the innovations that they created. This seems subtle, but it's an incredibly important differentiating factor from great enduring organizations. Oh, and by the way, being a great enduring organization is not a title that you hold forever. That is a state. There's only one thing that's harder than becoming a great enduring organization, is actually to maintain your status as a great enduring organization, because you have to continuously intelligently blend these forces of excellence and innovation that create tremendous friction in an organization. So let's talk about let's go deeper and get a bit more practical on these challenges that we have. Now, I have been blessed with over 50,000 cross industry leaders of excellence and innovation that I've learned a lot from, and I'm grateful for them and the thousands of organizations that have shared openly their experiences with me and collaborated with them. But there's a difference between advising organizations and leaders on how to do something and actually leading from within. So I want to spend some time here with you on 5 organizations in my career that I was a leader of excellence, innovation, and transformation from within these organizations. And I want to share with you some of the important lessons that from these organizations that you can take into your organization, and at a very minimal reflect on how you're dealing with these concepts in your organization. So there are hundreds of lessons. I'm going to focus on just a few. So first of all, I was a kid who was born in Brazil. I was educated in good universities in the United States with a background in engineering, physics, and investment banking. My first job was working for a Japanese company on technology development for Sony. And Sony at that time was a leading technology development company for displays, which was the area that I was working on. So at my first job at Sony, and I'll share this experience with you because it's a very important concept for excellence and innovation acceleration. On my first job, my boss, his name was Shigo Hayashi. We call him Hayashi-san. So Hayashi-san came to me my first day at work and says, José-san, I have an assignment for you. You must identify 100 innovations between the research center and an advanced manufacturing facility. And I was completely unprepared for that. I thought I was going to get some training, and then he just threw me out there to identify innovations. I didn't even know what innovation was. So I'll make a long story short, was one of the most difficult weeks of my life and career. And by the end of the week, once I identified 20 or so innovations, I had to come up with 80 others to fill in my 100 innovation report. I delivered it to Hayashi-san, and halfway through it, he stops at my report and says, José-san, how come you're so stupid? And I look at him with all the knowledge that I had gotten in university. I was like, and I gave him his dumb answer. And I look at him and says, I don't know. And he says to me, your problem, you think too much like an engineer. You must learn to listen to the process. And he didn't really mean the process or the set of activities step by step. He meant all of it. He meant the system. But I didn't know. I was young and I didn't know what that meant. And I know that I didn't like Hayashi-san. I was resentful for him saying those things about me and about my work. And so the next week I came ready to tackle those problems. I had a stronger attitude to tackle the problems the next week, and hoping that he was going to give me a new assignment. And sure enough, on Monday of the next week, he comes in, gives me a new assignment, and he tells me that, José-san, I have a new assignment for you. I have this weight that lifts off my shoulders. He looks at me because I'm hoping that now I'm going to get some training here. He looks at me and says, José-san, this week you identify 200 innovations in our system. So there is a longer version of that story that I'll spare you because of the sake of time here. But that was hard. That second week was very, very hard. Now, what are the lessons here? It's not that, you have this Japanese leader who is trying to torture me. No, he is actually one of the greatest mentors of excellence and innovation I've ever had in my career, a father figure for me to this day. First of all, one of the key lessons to be learned there is that when it comes to real innovation doesn't come from the mind of the expert, because in the mind of an expert, there's only one way. It is the mind of the novice that I had for a short period of time while I entered the organization. It is from the mind of the novice that there are many ways. And it is from those many ways, most of them incorrect or unfeasible ways, that potential innovations come from. And that's what he was trying to capture. Now, again, great excellence and innovation leaders, they develop both minds. They have both the mind of the novice and the mind of the expert, because the mind of the novice comes up with new ways of doing things. The mind of expert is actually quite good at scaling those ways. So it's not one or the other. You need both. It's intelligent blending of both. The other big lesson that I would like to share with you is that I suggest that the way you're tackling intelligent business process management and innovation in your organizations is probably wrong, because you are taking it from a very analytical perspective, a very rational perspective, that we're going to do all these rational things and identify the methods, the ideas, the technologies, and start implementing them, and we're going to get great value creation. But But it's not about ideas, it's not about methods, it's not about technologies. It is about people, but the right people. But the right people who will scale the core values of your organization and innovation for value creation in your organization. Those right people, they are only revealed by the test of innovation execution. So as a leader, your job is to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms accessible to all in your organization. Equip people to think differently about problems and opportunities, create a disciplined framework for execution, but most important, let the test of innovation execution reveal to you who are the right people in your organization. Because here's the deal, real innovators and real innovation doesn't care about gender, race, ethnicity, titles, or how many certificates you have hanging on the I love myself wall. It doesn't care. You're creating something new. The traits that separate real innovators from the rest are only revealed by the test of innovation execution. And those traits are purpose alignment. The purpose of the individual is aligned with the purpose of the work that they do, more even so than the purpose of the organization. Is alignment of the individual's purpose with the purpose of the work that they do for that organization. And then it's followed up by 3 other traits that are revealed by innovation execution. Real innovators have purpose, and then they have passion, they have discipline, and they have resilience. So purpose, passion, discipline, resilience is the key lesson that I want you to take from here. You need to find in your organization to really scale value, automation, business process management in your organization. You need to find the amplifiers in your organization. They will have purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience. When I left Sony, I joined a startup in the semiconductor industry that changed the world. I was incredibly privileged to work with the brightest scientists in the semiconductor industry, semiconductor lithography area of the semiconductor industry. They came from dozens of different countries. We were in California on a startup that had revolutionized semiconductor technology with a new laser system for imaging chips and making the transistors smaller and smaller, and allow Moore's law in the semiconductor industry to happen to this day. Now, this was early 1990s. And what we thought that if we just get the brightest people in the room, we're going to be successful. And that is not true. And the lesson that we learned there is that by all means, you need people who have integrity, you need people who have intelligence, you need people who have entrepreneurial energy to build something new. But that's not enough. If you just get the brightest people in the room, what happens is that they spend a lot of their time trying to showcase that they're the brightest person in the room. What you want to do is to widely develop collaborative leadership skills. Collaborative leadership skills are not well understood. Collaborative leadership skills is not about consensus building. Collaborative leadership skills is about surrounding yourself, working towards a common purpose, make a common purpose clear to all and worthwhile for all, working towards that common purpose. But as you lead towards that common purpose, you're surrounding yourself with people with very different perspectives who are willing to voice those different perspectives without fear of retaliation. There's a lot in there. Collaborative leadership is about common purpose, it's about surrounding yourself with people with different perspectives who are willing to voice those different perspectives without fear of retaliation. And it was not until we implemented collaborative leadership skills widely in the organization that we're then very successful. In fact, the most successful semiconductor capital equipment startup in the industry of the semiconductor, in the history of the semiconductor capital equipment industry. Cymer SML is the company this day. You can look it up. Now, from these 2 companies alone, the whole mechanism of excellence, innovation, and transformation acceleration was derived from those organizations. And the reason, and that's why I like to talk about these organizations and the lessons that we had there, because if I have a takeaway for today that I want you to think about how to scale intelligent business process management, I want you to think about these lessons from these 2 organizations. You need to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, engage the right people in your organization, to create the most value in the shortest time and simplest means, and equip these people with collaborative leadership skills and discipline, innovation, execution skills. That's it. Collaborative leadership skills and discipline, innovation, execution skills. So remember that, because that's what we then propagate in the other organizations. At Nestle now, you go from a startup in California to a company with 350,000 professionals around the world, 585 business units. And how do you accelerate innovation in an ecosystem like that? And the lesson is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Excellence, innovation, and any other initiative that you have is just a side dish in the jaws of culture. So the lesson is, be mindful of culture as it exists. Be empathetic to culture as it exists. You have to meet people and culture where they're at, and then create the most value in the shortest time and simplest means where they are at, before you have the audacity to start trying to change them. Because you must develop trust. And to develop that trust, you have to show integrity and respect for how they got there. And then you have to create value for them where they are at by bringing some new concepts and methods and implementing them, implementing new ideas that create value where they're at. Then you bring them along, and over time, transformation happens. But I see a lot of organizations and leaders who are so eager to transform and change things, and they ignore the history, they ignore the culture, and they just want to jump to the next state. Good luck with that. That's nearly 100% failure rate. So it's a recipe for disaster. I know you want to move things along faster, but you don't do that faster by ignoring what's there. You have to show empathy for what's there, meet them where they're at, create the most value in the shortest time and simplest means as you move them along. Now, as we left that organization, we joined Black & Veatch, which was an organization with more than 100 years old of successes. This organization with more than 12,000 interdisciplinary engineers doing the most amazing infrastructure projects around the world. Now, there comes a CEO and asks me to, hey, help us move along this journey here, help us go in this journey, help us create value and transform our organization. We want to be more innovative. We want to create more value for our clients, for our organization, for society. We want to be value creation leaders. Okay, wonderful. So I get in there, and what you find in a culture that's being successful, very smart people, you don't get to change it by saying, hey, let's just jump phases and go to this next stage. No, you meet them where they're at. And where were they at? They're focusing, they thought it was important to focus on ideas and methods and also technology. So what we did? We met them where they're at. We focus on ideas, methods, and technologies to create value for them. And for nearly 6 years, through a disciplined meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, we identify ideas and projects that we could work on that will create the most value, shortest time, and simplest means based on what they wanted to do. Now, this wasn't easy because I knew that there was a next step, but you can't get them to the next step until you develop the trust with them. Why does this matter? Because as you can see here from this graph, we're creating value there over a 6-year period. We got to 500 people who are actually dedicated to doing this in this organization by year 6. And you may say, oh, that's kind of slow, and you could have done things faster and get a greater value. Here's the reality. The reality is that 50% of all organizations that engage on a transformation of any kind or a big initiative in the organization that's multi-year, more than 50% of those initiatives die by year 3, between 18 months and 3 years. And 99% of them die within 5 years. So keep these numbers in mind, because when someone tells you that they're doing a transformation is very successful, ask them how long they have been at it. Because most organizations will claim success by year 2, and then in year 3, it's dead and gone, and they have to restart something. So if it's more than 5 years, then pay attention to what they have done. Now, not only we went past the 5-year mark and we're continuously creating value, we had the courage at that point to challenge our leaders to say there is a way of creating even greater value. Instead of focusing on ideas, methods, and technologies, which is what the organization feels comfortable because they're very analytical, left brain type of organization. We want to be more entrepreneurial. We want to find the right people in the organization, people with purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience. When we said that, people like the organization was scared because well, we never tried this before. We may fail at this. But I had built enough credibility now with the senior leaders in the organization to at least experiment. And we went from a typical kind of a Lean Six Sigma program, which I have nothing against, good discipline, awesome opportunities for value creation. But we went from that to a much more entrepreneurial, collaborative approach, focused on identifying the right people with purpose, passion, discipline, resilience. What do you need to do for that? You need to create a meritocracy of ideas accessible to all. And now you don't make it just a few people who are selected to be enlightened or participate in training. Now you make it accessible to all in the organization on a voluntary basis. Nobody's forced to do anything. And you're developing collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills for value creation. And when you do that in a disciplined fashion, what you see, and you make it voluntary, and you equip people with this different perspectives on problem solving, what you see then is that a lot of people are on the sidelines seeing what's going to happen. And what you saw in year 7 is that, well, you know what, we did better than year 6. And on year 8, people are like, wow, this is for real. On year 9, wow, this is a true meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms. And by year 10, we saw an explosion in growth and over 800% improvement in value creation and over 1,000% increase in voluntary participation around the world. How? Focusing on the right people, giving those people I don't know who they are up front, by the way. What we do is that we equip everyone with collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills. The discipline methodologies are underneath that. Lean, Six Sigma, whatever you want to have, EDCAR, ProSci, the MAIC, the MEDV. The methodologies are not most critical, but they matter. But they are below the line of collaborative leadership and innovation execution leadership skills. And then when you do that, what you see, what we saw is unprecedented in the industry, exponential growth, 10 years plus. Now we said, okay, we're onto something here. Let's try to do this now across hundreds of organizations to see if it was a fluke or if it's true. And what we saw before we went to that level, we actually said, let's do one more organization now that is a Fortune 100 organization. Let's see how that works. Now, at Endeavor Corporation, a energy Fortune 100 organization, the idea was to go for extraordinary with the company. But the company was anything but extraordinary. By 2010, the company had a market value that was below its book value. And the market was discounting this company as like, you're not going anywhere. So they brought a new CEO, and this new CEO looked at the company and said, hey, you know what? We don't have many competitive advantages on this company. So we're in trouble. So what we need to do is to build a culture here of excellence and innovation for value creation. So I was incredibly privileged to be asked to join this journey and to implement this systems of excellence and innovation acceleration with this organization. And what it translates to are the things that I already mentioned to you. I'm going to keep re-emphasizing these things. A meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms accessible to all. Now we have widely developed collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills across the organization on a voluntary basis. By 2018, we were identifying, prioritizing, and executing to full implementation more than 2,000 innovation projects per year. This was translated into financially validated benefits greater than $1 billion in additional earnings, financially validated and reported externally. And now you may say, well, you're making up these numbers. It cannot be that you created that much value. Let the market speak. By 2018, 8 years after we embarked on this journey, this was an enterprise worth $35 billion at the market value. So again, these patterns are shown here, and I want to share these patterns and reemphasize these patterns so that you can take them to your own business and experiment yourself. See what works in your business, because this is what's ultimately valuable, not what people think works, what actually works. So I say that you need to unleash the power of your people to go for extraordinary. You need to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms and equip them with collaborative leadership and innovation execution skills. You have high performance standards, but let the innovation execution tests review in your organization the folks who purpose, passion, discipline, and resilience to create value for your organization collaboratively. If you could look at these pictures that I have here, you'd see me with 14,000 employees in one organization making that happen. All right, so how does iBPM connect into this? Those principles, by the way, are very important. That's why I spend time on those principles. You can get all this, procedural things on iBPM right, but if you don't have those principles right, this stuff that follows here doesn't matter. So I'm gonna go fast on the procedure stuff and give you a couple of examples. So iBPM is simply the intelligent blending of stewardship, which is the ultimate level of ownership, with the wisdom of the organization and proven methods to identify, prioritize, and implement significant value creation, business process designs, improvements, and innovations. Fine, you can take a screenshot of this, look later on, and think on your own what that means. Now, there are different levels of maturity, right? And you have to figure out what maturity am I in my organization. And there's not one size fits all, because you're going to be at different levels of maturity and different levels of the organization. It helps to kind of understand where you are. You're a recognized level, identify, define, manage, or optimize level. I could spend an entire day just discussing this scale, but I'll just say this. Most processes are not worth having, and you should look to eliminate or reduce them to the simplest form. But if a process is worth having, you should have it at the defined level. You should not try to just optimize your processes. That is not what collaborative value creation leaders do. You should only optimize processes if that optimization creates value. And you have to be careful about that. Do not fall in love with process, okay? Fall in love with value creation and let that be your guide. Now, all processes worth having are worth having at the defined level, and then you have to make a decision whether or not you make incremental process improvements to be managed and optimized. Now, also, you have to understand the levels of iBPM innovation. There's not one size fits all. The most successful organizations when it comes to value creation, they understand that business innovation happens at the core level, at the adjacent level, and at the disruptive level. And they have a portfolio across the core, adjacent, and disruptive levels. So think about where you are as an organization, and do not fall in love with disruptive innovation and put 100% of your efforts on 100% on disruptive innovation, because you're going to fail, because not even the most innovative organizations in the world do that. 90% of your innovations come from core and adjacencies. So make sure you have systems that cover that, and then you play with disruptive innovation and some level of technology disruption as well. But make sure you don't sacrifice core and adjacent innovations because of disruptive innovations. Now, what are the success factors and pillars for iBPM value creation that we have learned? There are 3. Organizations that create value through iBPM, disproportional value, enduring value through iBPM, they have clear governance, define roles and structure for iBPM value creation. They have methods that are proven methodologies with clear execution mechanisms and common language on how we're going to execute on this. And they have collaborative leadership development. Skill development for all professionals, not just the few, but to all. Skill development for all professionals on collaborative innovation for value creation. So I'm going to talk briefly about each one of these items. On governance, if you don't have governance, iBPM is not going to work for you. And the governance starts with clear business and process ownership. Do not work on anything that does not have clear business and process ownership. That is the foundation. Those are the stakeholders who are going to implement new ideas that create value and sustain them. Now, the next level, you're going to have entrepreneurs and collaborative leaders in your organization who are helping identify and collaboratively lead these improvements and innovations for your organization. And you must equip them with collaborative leadership skills and innovation execution skills. Yes, you do need to have mentoring and coaching for them, but these mentors and coaches, they are not masters of methodologies, they are masters of entrepreneurship. They're masters of collaborative leadership. They're masters of value creation. And they are only revealed by the test of innovation execution. They are serial entrepreneurs. They are not some technocrat or some tool master. They are serial entrepreneurs, serial collaborative value creation leaders. Now, on this governance, you must also have clear champions and sponsors for the work that you're doing. And they have to be aligned with the coaches, with the collaborative leaders and the process owners on the identification, prioritization, and execution of what creates the most value for you. And you certainly benefit from having a steering committee, which is a subset of your executive committee, looking at this entire system and providing feedback and support to this entire system. So this structure and this level of governance, if you don't have it, I don't care if you're doing this at a departmental level or across the enterprise. Think about these roles and ask yourself, do you have these roles clearly defined, and are the people in these roles the right people to do what needs to be done? So this structure is very important, and governance is very important. Now, as far as methods are concerned, there are hundreds of different methods that you can use, but I'll share with you what we've seen from a discipline execution perspective and value creation perspective, the methods that have created the most value. Now, we have seen that innovation as a discipline is very, very helpful for organizations and for professionals and collaborative leaders. They learn to think differently. They learn to innovate. They learn to simplify. Teach them innovation as a discipline. Also, they benefit tremendously about understanding the basics of business process management. A lot of people want to do intelligent business process management, and they don't even understand what business process management is. You know, it's the end-to-end process ownership and definition of your most critical value creation processes, the ones that create value for your customers. Who owns them end-to-end? How are they defined? This is not a trivial question, because your senior leadership team does not agree on that. You need to collaboratively facilitate sessions that allow them to visualize and agree on those end-to-end processes, most critical processes in your organization. Then you get into the efficiency methods and improvement methods with Lean, about increasing speed, eliminating waste, and things like Six Sigma that reduce variation and satisfy customers. That's wonderful. So remember, however, that separately, and you may have backgrounds on some of these separate methodologies, separately they're effective, combined they're exceptional. And what makes them exceptional is when you do not become a master of these methodologies, but you become a master of collaborative value creation. Because methods alone do not transform businesses. Collaborative value creation leaders do. Keep this in mind. Find those people in your organization. That's what you're looking for. Now, to go a little bit further, a bit more advanced level here, what we see on iBPM value creation maturity levels is that at the lowest level, if you want to have a multi-million-dollar business, you don't really need a whole lot. You need an entrepreneur who is smart, who has kind of a good entry into the market, and that individual brilliance, along with some passion, discipline, and resilience from an entrepreneur, can create a multi-million-dollar business. So you can go do that. Now, if you want to become a multi-billion-dollar business, that's not enough. Now you need to scale that individual brilliance. So now you need to scale that individual brilliance with iBPM systems and mechanisms, which means that you're going to have the governance that we just discussed about, with clear structures and roles for iBPM value creation. And a bit on the side, you're going to be taking your bets with growth and technology accelerators. But it's all part of a systemic approach now to scale that individual brilliance. And that will allow you to be probably a multi-billion-dollar organization if you do that well over a longer period of time. But that's not enough to be a great, enduring organization. To be a great, enduring organization, you need the next level. You need the level that can possibly get you to be a multi-trillion-dollar organization. And very few leaders and organizations will ever get to taste that, okay? But to get to that level, what we have learned is that you need to have all these competencies and capabilities that we have highlighted previously here, but you must have the two skills that I mentioned to you previously: widely developed collaborative leadership skills, decentralized as well, and innovation acceleration, which is really innovation execution skills. You must have this widely developed, decentralized in the organization, and this is only achieved if you understand what those skills are, if you equip people with those skills, but also your organization has a very clear purpose and a culture that is aligned with that purpose, that you intentionally shape that culture to be aligned with that purpose, which means that you have a strong set of core values that define your behaviors, aligned with that culture, aligned with that purpose, aligned with value creation for all. So collaboration, innovation, and value creation are the ultimate measurements of your iBPM effectiveness on this maturity scale. So let's go through here and show you a quick example. This is an energy organization, energy infrastructure organization that is embarking on this iBPM journey. So at a very high level, what is the first thing that we do? We get with their C-level leaders and we discuss, okay, what are the most critical processes in our organization? How do we create value for our clients in this organization? This is a very important discussion to be had with your senior leaders, because most of them, they don't know, or they have different opinions about what those value creation processes are. What are those core client-facing processes for value creation? So in this case here, without getting too much into the details, the green zone there shows you what they agree are most critical value creation processes for their organization. And down below, you have the supporting processes, which are important, but they are only there to support those client-facing processes. And to decide, you're going to have your executive leadership processes. So do this step first. Make sure you have alignment in your senior leader's mind of what are the most important value creation processes in your organization. Now, this can be really tricky because a lot of organizations are not process organizations. They may very well be project organizations where projects king and different projects are king. So how do you do process ownership in a project-driven organization? So another important note to take here, remember that project teams, they receive and apply process knowledge in the field. They're there to implement new ideas that create value. The process owners, they're looking how to develop better ways of doing things across multiple processes and projects. So the connection here of intelligent business process management is really trying to translate this execution excellence that we have into a process excellence, and the process excellence into execution excellence. And intelligent business process management is that interface, okay? It's another way of looking at that, especially if you're a project-driven organization. So wonderful. This is all very interesting, José. But let's get, how do you implement this? Give me an example. So I want to first talk about innovation through simplification as the background for all of this. So what is innovation for simplification? Innovation for simplification is simply the realization that we live in a very complex world, and it's very difficult to get started sometimes on anything because there's so much complexity when you look at the details, right? So innovation for simplification is a mindset shift that you need to start with. And the mindset shift is that when you wonder what needs to be added to your systems and someone else makes a new request, remember that true perfection and value creation is only attained when there's nothing left to take out. So innovation for simplification is understanding the essence. So you may, if you have a lean background, you understand this very well. So you say, okay, this is a concept of lean, right? Yes, but here's the problem why you should not just rely on methodology alone. Because don't think of it just being lean, because you will not be successful if you just be lean. You cannot start with lean. You know what is the first thing that you need to start with for these innovations to create this proportional value? It's not with lean concepts. You need to start with collaborative leadership skills. So before you go into any method, you bring collaboration first. Remember this, great iBPM innovations start with great collaboration, and then they're followed by elimination, reduction, and only then automation. And you may see some lean in there, but notice that we start with great collaboration, then you eliminate, you reduce, and only last you automate. Specific example on this, I have a $1 billion power plant, and this $1 billion power plant includes the design, the procurement, and construction of more than 120 different types of unique and complex valve control stations. Well, someone said, you know, we should automate that because we're going to save a lot of money if we automate that. They put an automation team to work on this, and for 3 years, they got nowhere. Why? These are smart people. Why they didn't get anywhere? Well, they didn't get anywhere because they jumped right into automation. What they're trying to do is to automate something that when you look at details can get quite complex. Even at a high level, this is how you design a valve control station. At a high level, okay? 120 different types of designs that go through a process like this. It doesn't matter the details of the process. You don't need to be technically savvy to know this. It doesn't matter. The point here is that they tried to automate this process for 3 years unsuccessfully. Why? Because 120 different people have reasons why they should have this automation do this special thing for them. Now, here's the catch. You may say, okay, so how do you do this better? Collaborate first. We got 120 people to come into the room and say, okay, what can we do here? And you know, very quickly they say, oh, we can standardize on this. Yeah, we can standardize on this, but they want 120 different standards. That's what they want. They want to standardize my way. So the importance of collaborative leadership. It was not until we got those folks to collaborate, to look at some lean concepts and principles for innovation design and say, hey, let's look at the 80% design approach here. If we do what needs to be done 80% of the time, can we standardize that? Because in the beginning, you couldn't standardize anything. And then by taking 80% design approaches, by taking collaborative leadership skills approaches with the group, we're able to have them agree on not one, but 6 basic designs that could standardize about not 100%, but about 80% of the design function. And then we did that through that collaboration. We're able to eliminate all the steps because now we could standardize those. And now that we standardize those, we have a much simpler approach on 6 designs that can be summarized in what you see here. And what you see here was agreed upon by this team. And in 3 months, we had a full automation of what you see here in the screen. And automated to about 80% level on a software called Plant Vision. And now the whole process was built on one design on Plant Vision. And then after they put that design in the model, they could do the other 20% customizations that only took now a few minutes to do. We were doing the same process 20 times faster with less than half of the people that we usually had. By the way, we didn't fire anybody. We repurposed their work to other areas of the business, and that's a cultural thing that we can talk about separately. But keep this in mind. It's not about just applying Lean principles or Six Sigma principles to this. It was about collaboration first, then eliminate, reduce, and automate in that order. So, ladies and gentlemen, what matters most? Ideas, methods, technologies, or people? Certainly people, but the right people. And I want you to remember this. Who are these right people? These right people are people with purpose. They have passion, they have discipline, and they have resilience. And one day I can tell you more about each one of these components, but that's the gist of it. Now, keep in mind that these people, they don't work for Google, Facebook, or Tesla, okay? They work for you right now, and they're suffocating because there is no mechanism for them to align their individual purpose with the purpose of their work, and for them to create value and be recognized for that. So they are in your ranks right now, and it is your job to find who are these right people in your organization. You have to set up a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms accessible to all of them. And what you're going to see is that they're going to rise and they're going to say, hey, I have a chance to fulfill my work-life harmony in this organization. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, you know, I need to be equipped with skills. I need to be equipped with skills of collaborative leadership. I need to have skills on innovation execution and have the ability to take different perspectives at problems, because that is the essence of innovation. So we learn these approaches, we are educated on these leadership approaches and techniques, and we apply them to create value. Now, make no mistake, you cannot force people onto this, because ultimately they still must have courage, and it's the courage to act. In the words of Hayashi-san, training is no good, you must do. So you can put all the enterprise risk management pieces in place, and I applaud you to do that. But that's not enough. You, even after you manage your risks, you must have courage. You must have courage as a professional. You must have courage as a leader. Ladies and gentlemen, 100 years from now, you're going to be dead. So make it meaningful right now. Have the courage to lead collaboratively, to create value for yourself, for your organization, for your clients, and for society. Now, ultimately, as leaders, our jobs is to create a meritocracy of ideas with clear execution mechanisms, and create an environment in our organizations where these great people and their great ideas can connect. So make sure you take care of all of that. It's a lot to deliver to you in less than 60 minutes, but there are a lot of components in here that you can start experimenting with, and you tell me later on if it works or not. If you want to follow our journey, just remember, there are only two types of people who predict the future: those who don't know, and those who don't know that they don't know, including myself. So listen to what people say, pay more attention to what they do. And what the great enduring organizations do, they build a culture of excellence and innovation as their ultimate competitive advantage. And this is my mission, and this is my purpose until the day that the lights go off for me. So if you want to follow my journey, connect on LinkedIn, José Pires on LinkedIn. You're going to see me probably more than 50 cross-industry events and client work with more than 180 organizations currently, accelerating excellence, innovation, and transformation. But most important, working on meaningful, purposeful work with organizations that want to create, and people who want to create disproportional value for their professionals, for their organization, for clients and society. So thank you so much for the time. I'm gonna change hats back from presenter to conference host, and in doing that, I will change my background back to conference host. And I want to thank everyone who has been here with us today. You have been fantastic. It's a one-day focus event we had here on intelligent business process management. The questions that you asked throughout these 4 presentations were terrific, show a great level of engagement, show a great level of understanding of the subject matter from a very practical perspective, and we appreciate that. We want to thank Nintex, our sponsor, for making this possible and available to all of us at no cost on a global scale. Over 1,300 registered participants will be able to take advantage of this thought leadership and industry expertise. Reminder, as a registered participant, you will be receiving an email with a link and password for each one of these recorded sessions, where you have a chance to rewind, playback, listen, and get the insights directly from each one of our leaders. Thank you very much for all the leaders, the cross-industry leaders who presented today. Thank you, Brian Raffel, the conference director, for making this happen and allowing all these pieces to come together and provide you with a good experience. Thank you, Vijay Bajaj, the CEO of Proqis, for creating environments where great people and great ideas can connect. So bye-bye for now, wherever you are in the world. Have a great rest of your day, and connect on LinkedIn if you want to continue to follow our journey across multiple industries and in more than 20 countries. And we look forward to working with you to accelerate excellence, innovation, and transformation. And remember, nobody can predict the future, but together we can create it. Bye-bye for now.